Splinter Cell since the birth of the series was very known for its stealth gameplay, and if you look back in time it had no analogues. But unfortunately, the series was caught by its publisher's greed and absolutely untimely or strange changes. Today we are talking about Splinter Cell Conviction, the game that turns the series from pure stealth into full-on action. Looking at the old build of the game, developers wanted to do something different, social stealth, where Sam Fisher was also on the run, but he looked very untidy. And in terms of mechanics, it was rather a completely different project, but it's hard to understand from one mission what developers wanted to do in general. This demo was very similar to Assassin's Creed. You as a player are also among two people and practically wear the hood and kill or knock out your enemies. And the publisher is like, need to change direction to the fast pace. From here we have the creative director Max Belland, who was given only 2 years to develop Conviction. In his biography he was a designer to last a series of the Far Cry, a couple of old Rainbow Six games, the first part of Assassin's Creed, and the Splinter Cell Blacklist. And looking at the Splinter Cell, partly Max Belland turned this franchise into an action game, for which old fans literally hate him. The Conviction campaign begins after some time of events in Double Agent, but to be more precise, after Splinter Cell Essentials. After two last games one fine day in Valletta, Grimm finds us. At the beginning of the game we're trying to find the killers of our daughter, about the death that we learned at the beginning of the Double Agent. Here in respect, the staging of the first mission is quite good. We are shown the mechanics of execute, we are shown how the mechanics of stealth work in general, and we are shown the mechanics of interrogation. You know, many years ago it somehow handed me and stayed in my memory so vividly that after all these years I remembered it again and wanted to play it once more time. And I can honestly say what I was counting on at least a good game campaign, but having reached the kill of our daughter, we fell into some kind of ambush where Grimm asks us to surrender. Literally, at the beginning of the game, I find out that the Grimm is working with us, that the daughter is alive, and that we have a third Echelon conspiracy. Everything that they have tried to interested me, which at the beginning of the game turned out to be pointless because the daughter is alive. Honestly, this has to be record, ruining all the plot twists within the first 15 minutes. And what scares me even more is that our new main antagonist is Reed, the new director of 3rd Echelon. After Capture believed the story that Sam Fisher got himself untied, killed the guard who wanted to interrogate him, slapped Grimm, who tortured him, and blew the whole airfield sky high and just drove away in a car. I'm the only one who noticed that the lead director has 0 brain cells?
Thought you'd recognize the sound. Remind you of anything?
Yeah. Iraq. It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
How could this mission be stuffed into the Splinter Cell franchise? It's just that there is no stealth at all. The game throws nothing but routine-line combat at you, and this mission adds absolutely no depth or narrative value. In fact, the only thing this mission does is introduce a new character, Vic, and that's it. And after all this, you don't want to follow the campaign corny. Its history is not interesting and empty. Everything is inflated with stupid pathos out of nothing. You didn't see any character development in the whole campaign. Conviction cannot offer something new for the player after Double Agent, since we have no choice. Either it was necessary to show his indifference to the situation with the 3rd Echelon, or to arrange the narration, aka Jason Bourne, who is constantly being chased. And it will be much more interesting than another conspiracy. Every cutscene was haunted by Coste's dialogues about Sam Fisher, how Sam suffers, how he has changed. Grimm constantly calls up and asks for help, all while blackmailing us with our daughter. And it's just in this game that all characters become absolutely disgusting to me. And those interrogations, I like at the beginning, stop making any sense halfway through the game. I didn't even know why I was still interrogating people. After all that, I just can't take Conviction seriously anymore. This is super short campaign, an action game, but I just want to run through and forget like a bad dream. Moving on to the actual gameplay, which is particularly the last thing you would expect from a stealth game series, it just involves killing a bunch of enemies. But Conviction literally pokes you and says, sorry Paul, if you don't murder these guys, they're gonna murder you. And the most frustrating thing is that the levels are designed in such a way that we often have no alternative routes or cover, no shadows to hide in, and there's a light everywhere. Especially, the linearity of the levels struck me stretched to insanity. I was constantly held back by the game's design. It often looked like there was a way around visually, but you couldn't actually go there. You had to keep fighting your way through. A bunch of soldiers showed up, just go back through the exit passage they came from, and handle it however you like. And honestly, moments like this keep increasing all the way to the end of the game. Therefore, in such situations, I saved myself either by spamming grenades or by shooting everyone. And even if they gave you stealth, believe me, in this game it works really bad. I will just directly touch the grey screen on which invisibility to the enemy depends. And in this regard, the level of light in the old Splinter Cell games is much better than the new broken script. You can fully control the situation, but conviction in this regard is completely random. In terms of mechanics, the game after the previous games has degraded. We have an infinite number of mags on the gun and you need to replenish ammunition only for the sake of gadgets and machine guns. At the same time, if you put a laser on the pistol, then you will have aim assist on enemy head, regardless of the input devices. Even in Conviction a portable EMP appeared. If there's no stealth on the map, do it yourself. And in order to simply pass quickly, you need to abuse this device. Speaking about movement mechanics is another degradation of the Splinter Cell. We also don't have noise levels, we cannot hide between the walls by doing the split jumps, we can't do interrogations because now it's only cutscenes, run, crouch and kill, that's all that's left. But there's new execute mechanic that actually plays for you, but it's a little broken. Execute can kill someone through the walls. In my opinion, it should accumulate much longer, it should be used as a last resort. And when they tried to remind us of the old parts of Splinter Cell with one cutscene and then immediately poked with this mechanic, excuse me, I didn't experience nostalgia, I experienced what we lose. I completed the campaign 2 times, once on stealth on the gamepad, the second time on the keyboard with mouse for fun. And you know, the second time was much easier just because I killed everyone in a row. And in fact, the campaign was enough for me for 5 hours, instead of 15 in attempts to stealth. At the same time, I will say more that the last missions was very short and I often had the feelings that everything happens too quickly after the next task. In general, in terms of stealth, it is difficult to emphasize something in the main campaign, since the maps are not built for this, so I will return to it, speaking about the cooperative itself. The story takes place 10 days before the events of St. Fisher. A certain criminal organization that has connections in the Russian army has taken very dangerous warheads. The goal of the main characters is to prevent a deal at any cost and find the warheads. Further Echelon shared information with Warren, so we have got agents from both sides. Agent Archer is an American who represents Third Echelon. Agent Kestrel, this is a Russian, who also represents the Russian organization Warren. And in fact, the whole game we are pursuing the participants in this transaction. In co-op you feel a different approach to the story. You also see how cold-blooded main characters are in the same interrogations.
Where is this office? Tell me.
You get much more valuable information compared to the main campaign when you communicate with the enemy. Also, the dialogues in the co-op are much better and always to the point. There is nothing superfluous departing from the task. We are not told whole stories about one character. We are told what will happen next and what we need to do. I like this campaign because the style holds up, but if anyone wants to stream the cooperative campaign on Twitch, I wouldn't recommend it.
You are going to die! He's dead! That gun's on! You're...
But still, the big problem with the Coop campaign is that it keeps forcing you to kill. If that's not bad enough, wait until you hit the part where you're escorting the hostage and moving down a bunch of NPCs like it's a Call of Duty level. I probably did not expect this when more than half were completely without skirmishes. The Coop campaign only has 4 episodes, and compared to regular single-player campaign missions, the episodes are much longer. Each episode has 4 acts, and the most interesting thing is that the episodes, we have enough of them for 15 hours, plus the hours for which we replayed the tasks, as we wanted to pass just perfectly, because we were interested. By the end of the Coop campaign, it's clear that developers were already rushing with development. Somewhere the moments are tightened and checkpoints are placed strangely, so there was no desire to replay the last episode. Yes, there were many places where we met, but in the end, we were very pleased. with the story of two spies. This campaign is simple, but it's well staged and really stands out because of its unique style. And you know what? I'm kind of glad Conviction turned out the way it did. Because of the Coop Campaign, I finally saw what a Splinter Cell game could be without Sam Fisher. But it's a pity that the story is connected with the main campaign, since after the ending there are many questions and plot holes appear. Touching the technical component of the cooperative, here I have already experienced a huge number of problems. Perhaps I will start with the game search, or what was disabled by Ubisoft on June 1st, 2021. The search for games was very broken. You need to go to the co-op, select the game settings like your partner, and hope that you'll find each other. And the most interesting thing is that it doesn't always work. Therefore, from time to time, I had to check the Friends tab in the game to understand what the servers were available at all. In reality, all Ubisoft did was synchronize two games, and that was it. You do not play on dedicated servers, you just search for each other and Ubisoft will shut it down. It looks absolutely ridiculous and really shows how greedy publishers have become these days. Also, after connecting to each other, we don't have the ability to switch characters, so we just remember one thing. Who is the host is Archer, who connects will be Kestrel. Another problem is that the co-op is locked at 30 FPS, since at one time the guys decided to save money on netcode. I will explain it easier. Roguely speaking, when one of the player controls his character, he also controls it for you. In fact, there is no such connection, just synchronization occurs, the action of two games are transmitted from each other. And 30 FPS is solution to the problem of asynchrony, since two players can have different FPS in the same game. If one player is lagging, the game will also freeze synchronously for the second player. We tried to unlock it, but nothing good came of it. The game has become twice as slow, so we have already resigned ourselves to 30 FPS. Perhaps due to the fact that our configuration is completely different. In general, footage is floating on YouTube, where the guys were able to solve the problem and play it in 60 FPS. And speaking about 30 FPS again, yes, of course, it will be unpleasant for you to play, but it will be even more unpleasant to see not very responsive controls. This may come down to personal experience, but using a keyboard and mouse made the input like really noticeable. And for the first time, I understood why my partner struggled in so many situations. Why do I recommend using a gamepad? You'll feel like you have much control over the character in a lot of situations. In terms of gameplay, co-op is quite different from the main campaign, since this part of the game was made by other people. Maps in 60% of cases are made for stealth. The remaining 40 either need to sweep and go through random moments, or go through scripts where in any case, the guards are worried. Compared to the main campaign, we have more shadows and more passages. In co-op, those usual game conventions are particularly invisible. Especially here, I experienced a new experience for myself in terms of cooperative stealth. In Conviction, you rather see an excellent setup with more linear stealth, while in Coste co-op, it is local mechanics with stealth and a more elaborate level design at the side. But still talking about the Conviction stealth, we often got mad on it. I repeat, the core of the main game is not finished for this. There are maps designed for stealth, but NPCs notice you in unpredictable ways. NPCs can detect you through their landing from the second floor. You can get detected if you hang too close over a person. You can be detected if you just hang in the dark and an NPC looks at you for a long time. And also some objects do not become an obstacle to see you. Well, perhaps after all this, I looked with great surprise at the moment when I hacked into the security system behind the backs of the two scientists. I was really close to them, but they didn't see me. Therefore, even after 50 hours spent in the game, I do not fully understand how stealth works. This is completely random in many cases.
Unit 1,
113.
11,
Oh,
2,
yeah.
15.
We were often pissed off by the movement when you can go down because there is no mark, or when you approach the wall, the character does not want to climb, or my favorite moment when the character didn't want to climb from the side what I needed, and I got in the invisible ladders. Well, you can just run with your partner and trip over each other. Also looks really ridiculous, especially when it comes to the eye behavior, and especially in co-op. When I turn on the music, security acted differently every time, stupidly not reacting at all, but the craziest part is that I threw the sticky camera in the exact same spot each time.
Of the organization's headquarters, but we also need to know what he was trying to sell to the Azeris. They could be more WMDs.
Сейчас они сюда пойдут. О, видишь?
Intruder!
Сука, я в этот раз они не пожалею.
I will go even further. Whenever I use checkpoints, NPCs will sometimes suddenly disappear or already be dead. It left a really bad taste and actually forced me to replay the entire mission from scratch. At the same time, the moments when you can't see through the walls were constantly straining just because some walls are not translucent, and the law of the game does not stipulate this in any way. Therefore, this is again a flaw what also exists in the main campaign. I noticed that there were some scripts when you go a little forward and two people appear out of nowhere.
We've got a breach. Fan out and secure the area. I call it in.
There's no point hiding, you Peter. Come on out. What? Oh, shit! The area appears clear. I'll guard here.
Or when an ambush awaits you and NPCs run towards you with incredible speed. Turning to trifles, I noticed that in the Coop the dialogue credits are broken, so I already perceive the dialogues by ear or review some of the footage, and sometimes NPC's dialogues are very strange and can be repeated.
Yes, sir, I understand. We're trying to get through to you now, but these yes, sir, I understand.
Oh, yes, sir!
120 Kelvin. 190? 120 Kelvin.
2.5 millicores, 137, 3.41, 3.32, 2.77.
What about the difficulty level? If you try to go through the game without gunfights, it particularly doesn't solve anything. If you don't end up in gunfight, realistic difficulty just kills you faster. Co-op also features additional game modes beyond the main story, but they weren't interesting at all. Hunter is a game mode where you have to eliminate all enemies, section by section. Infiltration, a mode that actually copied the Hunter mode with only lasers. Face Off is a 1 vs 1 PvP with tons of NPC to kill too. And yes, there's DLC for these mods to run on other maps. But I don't see the point in buying them since the maps have nothing to do with the Coop campaign, and they won't offer anything unique for their money. In the end, I will say that I especially divided the problems of the game listed above between the cooperative and the store campaign, where I noticed that problem most of all, and I defined it there. I'll say it again. The approach to the storylines clearly differs, because they were all handled by different people, but the game core is still the same, and I do not exclude the fact that certain problems may arise both in co-op and in a single-player campaign. In terms of graphics, the game is only partly outdated. It is just that then it comes to faces, you notice the year 2010. There's also an obvious overuse of ambient occlusion effects. When I made the game a lot brighter, it became much more comfortable to play, and at the same time everything was perceived much better, because you start to notice a lot of colors that looks quite stylish. But there are also moments of a grey screen after which you feel like you are colorblind. Talking about the optimization, not all processor cores are used, therefore FPS jump very strange. There is a little that depends on the graphic settings on modern hardware. I have tried everything. I looked at a bunch of tutorials and frames per second just became more stable, but there were not more of them. In general, conviction came to a new casual audience that loves action, and at the same time, the old audience also bought conviction. Since we still have the hero Sam Fisher, this game is still called Splinter Cell, and I was also sure that I will have the ability to bypass our opponents. I think Max Bellin do not absolutely understood the core community of this game. In the end, the conviction the game turned out to be a total mess. This was not the kind of franchise where you could do that, especially after the failed Double Agent, which had 2 versions of the game, and the worst of these versions hit the masses. But I realized that Sam Fisher is the face of the Splinter Cell, which sells the games of the series, but at the same time they stagnate. Sam Fisher is undeniably a legendary character and has already shown who he is in this franchise. But there is nowhere else to develop him. It will only be saved by a reboot, but we have seen these reboots in recent years. As for me, it is better to pay attention to another spy, maybe like Kestrel. But oh yeah, I have seen the girls' version of Sam Fisher already, and somehow they still managed to turn my stomach. All the same, you have to remember who owns the franchise and what Ubisoft has become. As for the mass audience, it was not worth betting on it in 2010, because in the end they came and then just left, and when Blacklist sales in 2013 didn't meet expectation, the publishers was done. Splinter Cell was put to rest and Sam Fisher could only appear in Ghost Recon from that point on.
Anything else I can do for you, Sam?
Yeah. Call me Zero.
If you wanna buy Conviction now, it is probably only for the co-op, since the campaign with Sam will leave you with negative impressions if you're fan of stealth gameplay. But Ubisoft decided to shut down the servers. Therefore, after this connection, I can safely to say that the purchase for most people will be meaningless, since the cooperative story can only be completed by 2. Anyway, co-op can be played via LAN or through over third-party programs, like a Redmond VPN. If you can't play it yourself, check out our co-op game movie on Lightcross. We did the whole thing almost without getting spotted. Hope to see you there. Thanks for watching. The Conviction was my first video about Splinter Cell. I have more interesting videos about franchise with more in-depth analysis, what I wanna translate for you. Hope you will like my vlog, write comments below, what do you think about Conviction, write it too, and see ya!